Nosso segundo orador é tão afamado realizador Barry Chattington, que há 13 anos atrás trocou a ribalta do mundo do cinema por Portugal. Welcome, Barry! Ok, continuamos. Hi, Barry.
Hi, I'm sorry we're doing this in English, but my Portuguese is...
Why are you sorry? We're doing it in Portuguese. You're the one that's going to be sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I miss all the good jokes.
Okay, so basically, you know, Barry, you have worked with some very, very interesting people, like the Pope, two popes, the Queen.
No, Prince Charles, Princess Anne,
Okay.
Mountbatten, King of Saudi Arabia.
King of Saudi Arabia. So
Yeah.
tell me, okay, because we all want to know, are those people like, are they nice?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit...
You can say whatever you want. There's nobody listening.
Well, no, it was a bit
Is
strange.
Prince Charles your favorite?
No. His sister's quite very good. You know, Princess Anne is excellent.
Did she wink at you while you were doing the films?
No, there's a sort of strange story that when we were filming for a charity and called Home Farm Trust, and we were filming in her rooms in Buckingham Palace. So there's outside the window, and so we set up the camera and thought, well, she doesn't have much time. She came and she sort of, and as she came in, I said, "Oh, hello, I'm Barry Chattington," and just sit there. And she said, "You're not supposed to do that." What? You're not supposed to touch me. I said, "Oh, I'm a film director. You know, I get
to touch.
I get people to take their clothes off. You know, I mean, you know." And so she sat down, and then she was wearing sort of drop diamond earrings, and she's talking. You know, the cameraman. I'm sitting next to the cameraman, and the cameraman goes, and I said, "What's the matter?" And he's saying, you know, that the sparkle of the diamond earrings went ding, making his lighting work. And she's going, "Yes, what?" And I said, "Oh, he wants you to take them off." And she goes, "What?" The earrings, you know. No, it was a bit strange with the King of Saudi Arabia because you knew whatever happened, no one was going to come and rescue you. Because this was the King of Saudi Arabia. And Gaddafi was a bit weird as well.
Who?
Gaddafi.
Gaddafi?
Yeah.
What did you do with him?
We were filming. I had filmed. Oh God, there's a film made by a producer called Mustafa Akkad, who made a film called The Message, which was about Muhammad. And they had originally started they built the Kaaba, you know, which is the thing in Mecca that the faithful go round. And the King of Saudi, another King of Saudi, had realized that they were building something there. And they threw them out of Morocco. And they went, and Gaddafi went, "Oh, come here," because he didn't like the King of Saudi. And so they filmed the rest of it in Libya. And so we made a film. I was making a film about the making of the movie. And so I did that, and then they made another film called Omar Mukhtar, and then Gaddafi wanted to be in. Gaddafi lived in a tent in the middle of the desert, and he was a bit strange. And he spoke very good English, but he made everyone at the time go to Libya. You had to have your passport translated into Arabic.
So you had time to think, I guess.
Yeah. But
so did you? When you know, a lot of people here maybe want to pursue the career in filmmaking or documentaries. How do you learn how to tell a story? I think, you know, films are stories, right? And this conference about stories. Tell us about stories. How do you put that together?
You got to remember, I started my career as a film editor. And that's the only unique art in the film industry. If you think about it, cameramen, actors, actresses could be on the stage or would be just taking photographs. The only thing that you change as an editor, you set you set the timing. You have to tell a story. You can edit. Someone could take this and edit and make us look completely stupid.
Better?
We're available. So editing's the only unique art in the film industry. So I started as an editor, and I worked with some very good directors, like Hugh Hudson, who directed Chariots of Fire, like Alan Parker, who did everything from Bugsy Malone, through to another 20 to 30 pictures. I worked with Tony Scott. And so you learn that art of telling a story.
The timing.
Yeah, it's timing, and it's to do with whether there's enough time. I wrote a book once about David Lean, who directed Bridge Over the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia and things like that. And someone said, what makes a star? And he said, I can't tell you as a director, but I can tell you as an editor. A star you can just leave on the screen for another 4 or 5 frames.
Right.
Because they have that presence. So I suppose I learnt how to tell a story. And when I started directing, which was initially a documentary, I did some filming on slow motion horses. I became sort of quite an expert on slow motion. And it was at the time when cameras, when they went that 400 frames, went and frightened the horses. And if you frighten a horse worth of 2 or 3 million pounds or dollars, people tend to get upset. So we learned how to do it. And then I just went through and did various other things.
How did you take that editing or the storytelling to real life?
You have to...
Because, for example, in real life, we're trying to create our own story. But in the film, you have someone that writes the script, someone that creates the clothes, someone that creates the scene, someone that puts in the music, someone that edits. And in real life, how can we bring that to real life?
Well, in a movie, in a feature film, there is someone who writes the script. Strangely enough, in documentaries, which I made a lot of documentaries as well as dramas, you've got all this material, and you now have to make a story out of it. And I think there's a circumstance that you always have to, even when you're doing something with music, you have to imagine that someone, even if it's not obvious, that there's a story. There is something, man looks at horse, horse looks at man type of thing, and how they react. So you have to imitate. You have to sort of learn how you can take that story and use it to your whatever you're trying to make. I worked on a film which was about the first horse that goes to America.
The first horse that goes to America?
Well, there are no horses in America, and then the conquistadors rode horses, and there were Indians. Well, not Indians, but Native Americans. And then this Native American, the conquistador has fallen off his horse, and there is this horse. And so the Native American looks at the horse, and the horse looks at man with feathers.
What's this?
And so you have to learn, so you take that grammar of horse looking at native, and you make that real, and make it so you're sad or excited, or you have to make things sad, you have to make things exciting, you have to make things funny.
So of all the people that you've met and you've interviewed or you've filmed, who was the most interesting and why? Because we all think of these people that are on this pedestal and we say, wow, were you nervous when you met them? Are they,
I suppose I've made a lot of films with Paul McCartney, and Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney?
He was with a band. I don't know.
I think these young people don't know who they are.
I don't.
You guys heard of the Beatles?
And he's still there. He's very talented, and you realise that also he's been incredibly famous, and he could never go anywhere since he was about 19. He couldn't go out, and you go, wow. So that's what being really famous is all about. I don't want to do that. I'd much be happier being behind the camera going, I can make him look that way.
So being famous is not all that...
Well, I mean, it may get you good seats in a restaurant, but then everyone else in the restaurant is looking at you. And that may not be very good when you drop the stuff down the front of you. You go, he drops the soup down his shirt.
So I think you told me the story about yesterday. Everybody thinks it's this amazing... Right. How did that start?
This is Paul's story. I'd made a film about a film called Rockestra, which has never really come out. And it sort of sneaked out on the internet here and there and everywhere. So when we were making that, we were in his house, and I said, part of the film was him composing the track, and I said, well, what other tracks have got interesting? And he goes, oh, yesterday started out as scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it was like scrambled eggs. You've got lovely legs. Da, 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 and he goes on, you see, and never had any words, and then he changed it to yesterday, and there's a long story about him and
so some crazy ideas that someone is thinking about today could become a huge song in the future.
Yeah, so if you come up with something to do with food, you can make it into interesting words.
So if you were to, I like the superheroes, right? Superman has superpowers. He can fly. He can run faster than a bullet. What would you say is your superpower in all these years in your career? What stood out? What made the difference? Because now we can go back, and these people want to go forward.
It's back to telling a story, really. I mean, that's all you do. And I suppose... And also persuading people to do silly things, I mean...
Doing silly things?
Yeah, I mean, I once made a film with 12 bank managers.
12 bank managers?
Yeah, and they were very...
That must have been fun.
Well, they were very suspicious. And it was about farming and how bank managers were involved. And we, so I had them at one point all in a line, and they all got suits and ties on. And then I said, right, take all your jackets off, and they all took the jackets off, and we went, and right, now now put Wellington boots on, and now shake your leg. And they all looked at me like...
It's crazy.
And then when they finally saw the film, they all applauded, because there's a soundtrack of the Teddy Bear's Picnic, and it goes, da, 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 if you go down in the woods today. And what happened is that he started off in their suits, their ties, and then all shook their legs. So
you took them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. You do that, and then they could see what it was, but they didn't know what it was about at first. They were all very nervous. Yeah, but it took like a month later, they saw it and all applauded it. But it's you have to gain people's trust. I mean, when people were, I filmed with Her Serene Highness Princess Grace of Monaco. At first, I was supposed to make 12 half-hour programs for American television. Sadly, we only made 5 because she died after that. So, but we made one in London, and that's how I came to meet the popes. There was the Polish person and Jean Paul. When we made the program, it went out on American television. He saw it and then said, "Why don't you come to my place to rate the rest of them?" So and no one was at the time. You could film in the Vatican, so we went into the Vatican, and then and the reason of the second pope was that I wanted them to. It was about the rosary, and I wanted to get cardinals using the rosary and saying it in their own language, and the German guy turned out to be the next pope.
Wow,
so
wow.
That's why it's two popes.
Who treated you nicer, the Pope or Paul McCartney?
It depends where you go,
How do you manage to pull the pieces together when things are not going your way?
Well, it's difficult. I was chairman of the Directors Guild at one point, and there was a group of 12 directors. And yeah, occasionally you get really angry and stamp.
Really?
You know, and so we were having this discussion, and we said, you know, have you ever walked off the set? And the guy who directed Batman, he was a very nice guy, went, oh, shit. He said, I screamed and I shouted and I stamped and I went away for 2 hours, and I came back and no one had noticed that I'd gone. So there's a circumstance that, you know, somehow, I mean, you sort of tend to learn that if you scream and shout and stamp your foot, you get two problems. Very sore throat, very sore foot, and no one takes any bloody notice anyway, in the end. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, I think there's a degree, you know, Orson Welles said being a film director is like having the biggest train set in the world. You know, you can play with things.
You play, right?
But there's always someone who's put up the money who doesn't let you play with the thing, you know. So
You gotta,
I want a return on
you gotta choose the right ones.
my train set. You know.
We have some students here, university students, and they're studying. They don't know which way to go. If they're going to get involved in the film industry, what advice would you give them?
Don't. You know, just send money. But no, I think if you want to work in the film industry, you have to. You have to coordinate a huge number of people, and they will range from people who are not interested and just want the money. I mean, on the first Star Wars, the crew, you know, which was filmed at a studio that I ran, you know, no one was interested. They thought it was like Thunderbirds.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. This is the first Star Wars at Elstree Film Studios. And then when in the first weekend it took $180 million.
Wow.
I worked on that. It was very good. Oh yes, I was there. You know, it was there. There's a very good French film called Nuit Américaine. It's by Truffaut, and it's about a film set, and it's probably the most accurate film about, you know, film crews. But you have to get this ridiculous set of people together to do what
and put them to work together.
You have to do. And there's actors who are nervous as shit.
Actresses get nervous?
Actors are, you know, they do, you know, it's, well, if you're, you know, we as a film crew sit in the dark, like you're all sitting in the dark. But, and so the actors under all these lights, but there's like 30 people looking at whether they twitched their nose at the right point, said that word exactly right. And it's bloody nerve-wracking, you know, somebody being there. And then, of course, that's not necessarily what they feel. It's the words of the script. It's the words of the writer.
And then the editor makes it all good.
And the editor can change it. And then, of course, if it's a disaster, it's their fault. If it's a success,
it's you.
Well, it's their mothers, fathers, my agent, and things like that. You know, I want to thank them as they pick up the award. Nothing to do with all the other people who said,
so basically, in any industry you get involved in, you got to get ready to overcome the learning pains, overcome the fears.
And you have to learn about what you're doing, you know, how that thing works. And I made a lot of commercials early in my career. And you have to know that there are people who say, right, the light has to hit the beer bottle in that right way.
But how do you learn? Just by practice or shadowing somebody that's doing it?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I started as an editor, so you would see there was a fabulous director I worked with when I was an editor, an American director, who had awards for taking pictures of food. And I said, God, you know, his name was Harold Becker. I said, how do you do these fantastic shots? And then one day he said, right, I'll zoom back and you can see. And there was this food, and it had one light over it and loads of little cards reflecting light that way, one's not reflecting that way. So he was a perfectionist at doing this of making these things look good. And I think you learn from other people. You see. You don't want to do the same mistake as they did.
Right.
Or, you know, and there are people who are expert on certain things. And you've just got to suck in that knowledge.
In our business, we say you don't have to be good to start, but you have to start to be good.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow! Applause for Barry. Okay, we got some questions. We got some questions that we're going to answer in Portuguese.
I don't think I'll answer in Portuguese. Yeah,
but you live in Portugal. You've been living in Portugal for what, 13 years?
Yeah, yes.
Real quick, why did you move to Portugal?
Why
did you Brexited?
No. Well, I'm from
you Brexited
but
to
I
Portugal.
don't want Brexit. Don't put me in with Brexit. No. My wife and I wanted to live in the sun and be able to work, and my previous wife lived in France, and I wanted to go to France, but the new wife didn't want to go to France. I worked in Rome a lot, and I liked Rome. And then I was working with Sandra Lean, writing this book about David Lean. And every day, we were working in a house, and every day her housekeeper came in, and they would go, swish, 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 swish.
Can I translate?
And I thought, why are you speaking Russian? Anyway, and it turned out, no, that's Portuguese. And I said, what? How come you speak Portuguese? She said, oh, darling, when I was 18, I fell in love with this gorgeous man. And when I was 28, I realized he was a complete shit, but he was Portuguese. Why don't you go to Portugal? And I said, well, it's full of retired English bank managers playing golf. And she said, no. That's the Algarve. That's another country. You got to live Lisbon and north of. So that's why I live north of Lisbon.
So if anybody's watching us out there, I think we're live on the internet. Do you recommend Portugal?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what I really don't know is why you don't have a big film industry here, because it's a perfect place to make movies. But what the British government learnt in the 80s is that you have to give filmmakers tax breaks.
There you go. There you go. So if you want to get into filmmakers, let's make Portugal a filmmaking country. But we need tax cuts, right?
Well, it's not. What happens? What we forced through in the 80s and 80s and 90s was the circumstances that a government would give someone building a new factory a tax allowance.
Really?
So, yeah, and they do virtually worldwide. And so we said, well, why don't you do it with a movie? And so what happens in the UK is that you will get a tax rebate of about 20%. So you get 20% back on your money.
Wow, that'd be awesome, no?
And, well, that's why you see credits on big movies, which would be one line like visual effects, which is CGI, by double negative, and there's 4,000 people work for that company.
Wow, that's great.
And they do all the tricks, and so people do that, and it works very well, and that's why the British film.
But you don't speak Portuguese. The guest we had before says we're not going to have enough money to pay our pensions.
Well,
we got to find.
If you encourage,
if we create jobs, we will have more money for the pensions,
you get
right?
more money. I mean,
there you go.
It's worth $1.5 billion, the film industry.
There we go.
A year.
Okay, who's got a question for Barry? Over there? I can't see. Put your hand up or stand up. There we go. Here's a gentleman. You can ask it in English or in French because you had a French wife.
On va parler en français, hein?
No.
So I'll switch to English.
It was just a French wife.
It's just a French wife. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, Barry, thanks for coming. Thanks, George and all the organizers for this great event, because it's a bit disruptive. What I have seen so far. So it's very entertaining and enthusiastic.
Thank you.
So my name is Lewis. I've been dedicated to technology. So a bit also technology is being used on filmmaking. and has been involved as such. My question to you, Barry, is that I'm really must say, a bit jealous on your professional life because you dealt with the music bands that I admired, like Pink Floyd, Beatles, actors like John Cleese and so forth. So those that from the 70s that when we are young, everybody wants to go to UK because it was the center of everything was happening. And nowadays the world has changed. And I see that also you have moved to Portugal. And after these 13 years that you are here, I guess that you have some good arguments for the people that is living here to stay here. Maybe, you know, our youth is going abroad. Some of them return, but a lot of them made their families abroad and do not return. So if you bring us a word that justifies the people to stay here, bet on this country, and develop the country, and give good reasons for that, I think this word would make more people enthusiastic in investing here. This is one of the things. The other thing, George, you just made the point about the Brexit. I think Barry was anticipating and forecasting that there will be a Brexit.
He came earlier.
And coming to this point of the Brexit, I'd like also to hear your opinion. How could this impact Portugal? Do you think in a positive way, negative way? If you can guess on that, if you have a word if this would be positive, it would be even better. Thank you for coming here, and all the best to you and to all of us. Thank you.
I think with Brexit, I don't think anyone knows what the hell is going on with Brexit. It's unfortunately a circumstance where a lot of people got persuaded that the British were better out of the EU, which I completely and totally disagree with. I voted to join the EU in '75, and I think it's appalling what's happened now, but it rather shows the power of a few newspapers persuading people that they could be back standing alone. The joke is that whilst they refer to the Second World War, they forget that at the time the UK also had Australia, Canada, New Zealand, India. So they didn't stand alone. It was a complete box. But it's a degree of, you have to remember that the newspapers in the UK are mainly controlled by billionaires who would have to pay tax. There's a tax that comes in 2020 that everyone has to pay tax all across Europe.
So they're creating the story that the people are listening to.
So it's a political circumstance. It's how you influence people. You have to remember that there was a small... If you ever look at a map of how sorry, this is the political stuff. You don't want to know.
Yeah, it's a political. Okay, any questions from the young people who want to make films? Hello?
Hi, this is Rajesh again, up here. Thank you very much, Barry, for coming here and sharing your experience. I have a very direct question. You finished your statement by telling, let's make Portugal a film destination. So my question is, what is the minimum amount of money required to produce a decent feature film which will promote Portugal? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people here in this audience who can afford to put in the money individually or in a group.
Send it to me. No, you have to be very careful about what makes a successful film. You don't know. It's not something you can predict. Otherwise, I used to do talks about using an example of a picture made in the 80s called Sleepless in Seattle, which cost $2 million to make. In the same year, Waterworld's cost $145 million to make, and Sleepless in Seattle made more money than Waterworld. It's not a circumstance of how much money you put in. Also, the other thing is you've got to understand is you can't send a message in a movie. You can, it's very good, and it makes you feel good when you send a message, but the movie industry is about entertainment. It's about making you laugh and making you cry. If you want to send a message, I mean, a very famous studio director in America said, if you want to send a message, send it by Western Union, meaning send it by telegram, rather than try and do it in the movies. It's a difficult circumstance. What you can do to encourage the film industry here is that you've got great weather, you've got great locations, you've got a lot of people who are very nice. And part of the reason I love living in Portugal is everyone is nice. Not everyone. There's always that miserable bastard.
Here, they're all nice.
Is he over there? No, anyway, but there's always someone. But the answer to that question is not necessarily you have to come to sunny Portugal. The reason that the film industry is successful in the UK is talent. It's to do with people with talent making...
we have talent here.
Yeah, I know, but you can't say, hey, send us this amount of money and we get more money to make a Portuguese film.
We got to create
industry.
roots, right?
It's a whole set of different people and different talents. And there's a degree where one of the great things in the UK is a fantastic pool of actors. But at any one time, there's no more than 2% of actors earning any money a week.
Would you like to be part of a workshop?
Of a workshop?
Workshop on filmmaking.
Yeah.
Of course. Send them an
being
email.
offered a job.
Thank you.
Send them an email. You know, it's like we look at the industry of soccer and football, and maybe there's 300, 400, 500 kids starting off small in every city. And Portugal, a very small country, produce a lot of soccer players. We got to start thinking the same way as filmmaking. You know, get the kids in the schools interested. The YouTubes and the Instagrams is creating a lot of filmmakers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but there is you've got to understand there's a difference between making little movies and being an industry. An industry is keeping people working. There's always a slight disagreement between making movies. The French have a very good film industry, but it's controlled because it's part of the culture of the country. Where in the UK and in America, it's a business. We make money out of it.
And that's when it works,
and
right?
And that's the major difference.
When it works, right?
And you can get in France, you can go to a multiplex, there's 7 screens, and one of them's got queues going round, and one's got no one going to it. And it's often the one that no one's going to is something good for French culture. And it's not. It's a business. It's a business that keeps lots of people working and and a big industry. You know, that special effects industry in the UK is earning $2 billion a year. Yeah, it's a lot of, no, 2 billion euros a year. It's a big industry, and it employs a huge amount of people who are experts in computers. And that is
today it's all done on computers.
Because most of the film industry now, there'll be a green screen behind us, and you and I could be in space.
We'll be in a cliff.
We could be anywhere, because that green screen you then turn into something else, and it's a high technology industry. But we've also got to have great actors, and of course, there you are, great actor. I'm not sure about the makeup and the hair, though.
Oh,
but,
I'm sorry. Thank you. You're so kind. Well, in terms of technology, Portugal is developing a culture and technology in Portugal, and we just got to continue to create that.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the UK, there's an amazing website which is about raising money called Cedars.
Raising money.
Yeah, it's raising money for companies. You know, people say, I've got an idea of making a new bottle or something, and they raise money. Now, it looks like a very English company, but you know where all the technology is?
Well, you and Raj and I are going to get together. We're going to create that website. We're going to raise money. We're all going to put in, and we're all going to start our own film for Portugal. What do you think, guys? Thank you, Barry.
Okay, brilliant.
Barry.
Enjoy.
Barry Chattington.
Thank you. See you. Hold on.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, we got a present for Barry. Okay, so here's your gold bars. Thank you very much for
wow,
joining us here today.
Can you drink it? Should you just mix it with...
You can't drink it, but I'll get you something. You can't drink it unless I'm there with you.
All right, okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy.
Thank you.